Good afternoon, one and all. So yes, we are about to do our second round table, which is all about framing the whole. For those of you that aren't 100% certain of what on earth are you talking about, this is to do with the recovery build that I've been banging on about. And today we're going to discuss, with the help of some wonderful people with a bit of knowledge, some of the issues and problems that I might come across within the build and how we overcome that. And the one good thing about today is I'm not going to be doing all the chatting. I've got someone that's going to stop me from doing the chatting, which is someone you probably will know anyway, which is the lovely Malcom. You all right, Malcom?
Hello. You've got to be back again for more things to do together.
Yeah, dragged you in.
Yeah, kicking and screaming.
Yeah. Obviously, bear with us all in the UK if you're watching this anywhere else. But in the UK, we've got a bit of a heat wave going on. So Malcolm's losing pounds by the minutes, literally, because it's very hot in the shed, and I'm not far behind. But anyway, let's get the other two guys in. We'll go through the chat very quickly, and I'm going to hand over to Malcom, and he's going to herd the sheep, so to speak. But anyway, we have the wonderful Bill. All right, Bill.
Good morning. Thanks very much for having me in.
How you doing? You right?
Doing good.
Excellent. And we've got a new face on a panel for his expertise, which you'll deny all knowledge of, is the wonderful John.
Hello.
You all right?
Yes, thank you. I was going to say I was freezing, but no, I'm not. I'm actually melting. No, I can't do it. No.
I'm very much. I just remembered the reason I'm getting hotter and hotter is because I haven't put my fan on. So yeah, I've done that now. Anyway, have a quick look at the chat. Obviously, those of you that are watching, thanks very much for tuning in. Please get involved with the asking questions or making comments, etc., etc. We will go through them as we go through this roundtable over the next hour and a half or so. I don't know how long it's going to be. It'll be as long as it is. So we've already got in the wings the wonderful Malcolm. He's just saying good afternoon to you all, obviously. We've got Hobby Time saying hi, guys. Hello. And we've got Joe. There's Joe. Morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And the wonderful twin of mine, Jim. He says hello all in chat and on screen. Indeed. So before I hand over to Malcolm, I just want to say to Joe, thank you so much, Joe, for your enthusiasm over the last few days and the messages backwards and forwards. And by all means, chime in and put those comments in throughout the thing, the things in which you sent me a message to. So I've not told these guys anything that you said really as such, apart from the vertical beams that we talked about a moment ago. Anyway, enough of my chat. Malcolm, take over before I carry on talking.
Sure. Would you put up the picture of the big explosion for me, just so I
certainly can. Bear with me 2 seconds, because we rehearsed all of this.
So, as we know, you're planning, Mr. James is planning a entirely massive, structurally sound requiring diorama with several levels, and it's going to be rather big, and it needs to be strong. It needs to be well made, and it needs to come apart as well. So that is really what the chat is about today, is getting John, who's good at putting things together, and Bill, who's, I don't know, you made a diorama or something before once?
Couple. I think I'm on my second.
But you're also very good at doing lots of different levels. So that's really why you guys are on here, is because you've got the knowledge, or at least the gumption to have a go at something like this, and provide some pointers. So what we're going to go through really today is planning and scaling big projects. We're going to talk about the materials and maintaining the stability as well, which is going to be really important, because hopefully we don't want it to break down. Designing for breaking apart and future access. So if you need to clean it, or you need to open it up, or you need to repaint something, say, or if the batteries die or something, you need to be able to get into it. And also, quite importantly, balancing how big a project this will be. So balancing ambition with how practical it will be. And then anyone got any questions as we go and we chat, then please put them in and we'll go from there. So first off then, I'm going to start with Bill. Bill, what is... So you build lots of levels on your dioramas. You're well known for it. You've got lots of different levels, so you obviously have to worry about your structure and how it's going to hold up. Is there anything that you would, any physical things that you would look to do to make sure that it doesn't fall over? What's the first thing you would do when you're planning your structured builds?
Great. I think it has to do with indexing.
Right.
When you're figuring out how to take two pieces and place them together, if there's no way of indexing them or making sure that they align up every single time the same way, it becomes very difficult over time. I've done it in the past where I'm using for structure like the foam. I use foam for my structure quite a bit in building up the floors of multi-levels. And there's typically a lot of flat space that you don't see in the diorama that allows it to just sit one on top of the other. But even at that, if it'll sit there nicely, if I don't put like a pin in one element to fit into a receptacle in the other one, so it indexes and sits, the same every single time. If you don't do that, when you're building, it can shift. You may not notice it, and you may put an element in that then you correct it and it's out of alignment. So as I'm building those levels, I'm thinking of indexing. I'm thinking of making sure everything's going to align up as I stack it and unstack it. And that's the other key element, is the ability to unstack it, both in your design, James, for taking it apart and storage and travel and all that, but also for building. It makes a heck of a lot of sense to have the modularity so you can unstack it and work on a level and move to the next.
Do you take yours apart when you move them around? You do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in transportation, once it's finished, but also, like I just said, during the build, the complexity that you're doing, even if you're only, let's say, 6 inches deep in a small room or something like that, the complexity is such that you really need to remove that top or whatever's above it to get back there and access that stuff, because you don't want to be reaching in. It's too easy to reach past something and knock it with the side of your hand or possibly damage something. And so by unstacking them, maybe even working on it separately, but put it back together so you can do those step backs and see how it looks and how it's coming along. Is everything, the continuity between floors and things like that. So I really rely on that. And I don't want to go too far with my question here, but when I'm starting my diorama, I want to get that structure together first so that I have an idea of where things are going to lie throughout the build. And I don't know if that's something you've considered, James, or if that's the direction you're going or not. Some folks will say, well, I'm going to start with this floor, or I'm going to start this, and then I'm going to move on. My idea came from, I want to be able to see the effects of what I'm doing on this level or this floor in real time, if not constantly, when I stack it up to do that step back and take a look.
Mm-hmm.
Because that really gives me an idea of how one change here is going to make a difference to something up here. It may not be built yet, but you can envision it in your planning, what's in your brain. And without having the whole structure there, I really struggle to see that. There needs to be a relationship between, let's say, 3 floors. There is a relationship visually to a figure on the bottom floor and a figure on the top floor in placement, in depth, where they are. In a diorama like this, you're going to have those relationships that you're going to want to establish. And so in doing that, I like to have that whole structure there. And then I start detailing it out.
Right.
And then there's that unstacking and restacking, ensuring we've got the indexing so that it all goes back together every time. And that visually helps me understand, not the immensity of the project in front of me, but the relationship to everything that I'm going to be putting into it from that point on.
Right. Gotcha. So
Sorry that I kind of went on there, but
that's right. No, so you would get the structure right, and then you would start to worry about whereabouts you're going to put your figures and everything else. Yeah. So
and that has been consistent now in my builds.
So you also got to consider about where you're going to put the electrics, because this is going to have lights,
right,
as well. Yeah. So is that something you've considered? You considered the indexing, James, the pin and hole structure, or magnets, or lasers
absolutely,
to line it up?
Absolutely. So this graphic is not it's not a plan in any way. This is an AI generated understanding of my vision, if you like. So if you can imagine that the diorama's got 4 sides, of which you can only see one right now. But on the right hand side of that, you can see that there is a part of the superstructure, if you like. So obviously you've got your island at the top, island superstructure, and then underneath you'd have compartments that just so happen to follow the line of the island above. So I'm going to replicate that, and obviously I've got 3 on here. It's got 4 levels, so ignore the very bottom one. But we've got 2 hangar levels, and the flight deck is what I hope to achieve. The compartments on the one side are there for 2 reasons. Firstly, that's sort of accurate, although I haven't got the plans. I can't tell you 100% it's dead on, but that's where we're going with it. But it'll also give me the ability to create on the one edge of the 4 the superstructure or hull of the ship, which will have some interesting bits and pieces going on anyway.
Is that where the pins are going to be, or the magnets?
Yeah, so that then gives me the ability to now all the layers can all basically I need to devise a way in which they are supported by that superstructure on the right hand side, counterlevering the decks, if you like. The thought process is at the moment what I've done is I've made the base, and I've made the hangar deck, and I've obviously got the flight deck that comes with the kit that I'm using. So the flight deck, what I've done is I've put that together. I've put some magnets in there, and then sealed everything underneath the flight deck, so it's a flat surface, but with 4 magnets. So that's my first holding point. And the reason I got that is I'm going to, when I take that top element off, you'll have a flat surface that can be stored flatly. And then all the beam work will be attached to the next level down, and so that will correspond to the following level down below as well. In that beam work, will niftily hidden will be the magnets that can attach that next above level to it. That gives me some sort of control as to where it sits and how it sits. The second element in which I want to achieve is I'm going to drive effectively 2 poles all the way through the superstructure.
Right.
Now, these will be in pieces. So the first piece will screw into the base itself. Once I put the next level on, magnets will attach it, and then the next pole will go in and screw into the one below, with almost creating like a washer effect, using the deck as the washer, which then creates the rigidity for that isn't going to go anywhere. And then you put the next level on and do that. The only thing in which is slightly, I haven't quite got my head around yet, is because obviously in the flight deck, what I don't want is I don't want to have to pop a piece out to screw that in. I want to be able to screw that pole in first and then attach it. So maybe screwing it into the bit below isn't what I want. I just want something to just literally slot in instead.
Yeah.
And then that way I don't have to worry about what's on top. But then the superstructure will hide all of that elements within it somehow. Not 100% sure how that is. But yes, so that's the idea, because then obviously I can attach it when I'm playing to figure out where the figures and the aircraft go, etc. Because that's all very late stage thing. But it also then gives me the ability, because one of the things I want to achieve within the time that I've allotted myself is that I wanted to go to 2 shows. One is Telford, and one I hope not set, but one I hope would be European show of some description. But it needs to be transportable.
Yeah.
So being able to cut it down to 3 levels seems a sensible way to do it to me.
You need to be able to transport it, and you need to put it back together in the same way as it was, as Bill said, in the same way. Every time, and hopefully more than just 2 shows, hopefully for many years to come. Do you want me to do comments? You don't want to do comments?
No, I'm just going to show comments. If you've anyone in the that makes a comment that's a question, then obviously we'll highlight that and discuss that. But if it's just saying hello or telling us what you're up to, I will just highlight it, and we can go over that another time.
Cool. John, have you built any dioramas like that, like houses or anything large in that?
Nothing really like that. No, not that complex. I was looking at it. How to explain this? I've never looked at a plan of an aircraft carrier, but I've been on RFA landing craft, and all the stuff is on the outside. You have a big hole in the middle. How to explain this? I was thinking along the lines of the hangar decks in the middle, and you've got stuff behind it, so that where you've got the control, the bridge and all that, that's not directly over the hangar. The hangar is going to be in board of that, so you've got a lot of space behind it. Plus, you've got a lot more structural beams, not only going longitudinal but starboard port, basically across it. So they would extend through the wall. You could use them to support. Plus, you can extend them out a bit further and put something on the end that they go through to help support. You can then just make modular sections. Yeah. That's
so
hopefully that made sense.
So in that picture that you had just now, if you had structure in the back of that superstructure to hold everything together, that you're never going to see that, are you? That
no,
end
but
of things.
If you put a beam from, because the cross beams would be really thick, really big, heavy beams. And if they go all the way through at the back of it, you can push them through something that's solid. And you can, I was thinking sort of like put a sheet of perspex, a good dot of perspex, which you could clamp to the table or something like that. And they go through, so they then support it. You can lock it up. This is something I was thinking from this morning when I went, does James want me to talk about how I would think about doing this? And it was the only thing I could think of was his aircraft carrier. Because there's not only just the beams going longitudinally, and it's got cranes and things like that. There's also pipe work. Yeah, you've got to represent all the pipe work going along it, and all things which could be closed off at the ends, but going through a bit of perspex with a hole in the middle and holes, and just hold it together.
Yeah.
So just to visualize that for you, this is this is actually a video that's on the YouTube channel within the build section. This is a 3D rendered walk around the Akagi. So we're on one of the hangar decks here, and as you can see, the superstructure. Well, I was talking about the island would be above. So where that comes out, obviously on the left hand side, you've got the hull, physical wall, and then the compartment there comes out slightly, and above that would be the island. That's the sort of thing in which I've got to recreate. But as you just rightly said, you've got your beams at the top there, which are running lengthways and across, and the cross beams will go into that wall here, and they won't go anywhere. They will just click into the wall, if you like. So again, it's another mechanism to try and tie it all together. So I think they're the ways in which I think or envisage it to happen. But there's bound to be something that I've not seen, or that I might come across. You know what I mean? That I go, oh yeah, no, that's not going to work. I need to change that. Oh, go on, John.
How far across are you coming? Are you doing the whole hangar deck, then another wall, or
No.
are you going to go halfway?
So you basically got I'll get the base out in a second, but you've basically got on the right hand side would be the island and the compartments as you go down through the decks, and then each layer is counterbalanced by that island and compartment deck compartments on the right hand side, and there is nothing holding any of the other three sides. So you got four sides to the diorama. Obviously, one side will be the compartment stroke hull, and everything else will be open. So you'll be able to look but run your hand all the way through. In fairness,
so you don't have anything on structurally holding anything up on that end.
no, nothing at all.
No. Okay, which is what kind of brings us on quite nicely to the structural integrity part of the show. So, warpage, that's a word, isn't it? Warpage over time would be a worry if that was the case. How would you approach preventing that? Are you planning on a metal structure or something, or? Because I know that, Bill, your stuff is usually completely enclosed, isn't it? So I guess you don't have that.
Right. And so I've not really had to deal with any cantilever, that kind of a structure. But I think that if you could source, maybe some aluminum I-beam to replace some of the ones that are in there, because though you're not going to have a heck of a lot of weight on each of those, that flight deck is going to have, fair amount. And over time, gosh, that's the other thing. It might look good today. 2 years from now, that weight's going to really have some effect on that plastic, no matter what the weight. It just happens. And so, number one, in storage, I would prop it up. I know you're great at that, so you would consider it. But yeah, maybe going with aluminum. And just like John was saying, that, those horizontal pieces that come out, basing, your weight on that structure on the back side that's holding up all the cantilevers, really bolster that up. That's what I took from what you were saying, John, is you're going to have this structure that's your main structural element, and then everything else coming off of that. So finding, I think some small aluminum I-beam would be your best bet, and 2 or 3 per. And I think I've got the size in my head. I think you showed us in the last one. 2 or 3 per structural floor, I guess, would probably handle it. But you are going to have to do something about that, because that weight could also bear on those plastic elements. And I don't know how big they are, under the superstructure, but yeah, over time that could have an effect.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Actually, have some hidden.
Yeah, and you can work them right into it. With painting. I mean, I don't think you would even be able to tell it, not knowing what the underside of your structure looks like, or if that's been built yet. I don't know if you have to take things out of the kit, or if it's something that you just add in. does it have those steel structural elements already on the bottom of each floor?
I don't know if there's room for it. Joe says sandwiching the deck would help with warpage problems. The outer
Yeah,
supports
doing
would help
some
to support
sort
it.
of torsion box design.
Yeah.
But that, I think, yeah. So look at that, James. That's a good sized deck.
So if I just highlight myself a second. Okay, so this is the kit deck, which is all glued down, or glued together rather, as per the kit. The only thing that's different is if I turn it over, as I said, we've got these magnets in place, and then I've used some 0.6 mil plasticard on here, which I've glued to all the framework of the molding of the deck. So this is now a very solid bit of plastic.
That's the top, right?
This is the top flight deck.
Okay.
Then what would go underneath here? So as I was saying, these magnets would then click into where the framework is.
Yeah.
Which just so happens, he says this, because I'm very prepared for this. He says. So that is the framework for the roof structure. So obviously that would let me see if I get this right. So the bit that's facing you now, that is the outer edge. The bit that's facing me is where the island is.
Okay.
So these beams, about here, there'll be a wall that runs all the way along where these beams are cut into the wall, so they fit into the wall. Mm-hmm. And then this section, this is difficult with one hand. You got about that much section, which is the compartment. So it's the bit from below my thumb that will be cantilevered.
Gotcha. So what Bill's saying is that some of those I-beams could be aluminium, or you could run some sort of brass rod through, I guess, one or two of them. Because already it's starting to wobble. And
he's right. I put this together because I wanted to see what I needed to do was I needed to figure out how I was going to achieve this crazy goal. And what I've got here, this is sugar. Bits of plastic everywhere is what I've got.
Yeah, you don't want it to fall apart like that when you've got it.
So this is the middle deck, if you like. And what I've done is I've routed where these I-beams go. And that fits snugly into there. And the idea being is that obviously this hasn't got the magnets in yet, but this will have on top of this is 8 mil ply, I think it is, marine ply. But this will have a 0.6 plastic card put on top of this, which will be the deck plating for the hanger. Mm-hmm. So again, that gives me the ability to detail it, but also gives me a bit more thickness, if you like. So the magnets will be in here like they are, I just showed you, but they'll also be within the beamwork to hold them tight. But I think you're right. I think I do need to think about, maybe I need to think about a metal element within this structure, because this is obviously, you can see I can flex it. Yeah. And that's not good. Yeah. Because that is going to give me
that you need to consider is as you get older, a bit of droopage.
Yeah, but that's it. Exactly. I don't want to be suffering from droopage.
Happens to us all. Yeah. Just looking at your shelves behind you, some of those, not John's shelves. John's shelves are perfectly straight, but your shelves there have already got droopage because they've got weight on them over time. So that will happen, I guess, to yours as well. John?
This is a good example of this is perspex, not glass. The idea was I was going to put glass in, and then I realised how expensive it would be to do it. So the plan is that I'll do a shelf or 3 every other 6 months.
Yeah.
But I've never got round to it. So yeah, every couple of months I take everything off and turn the shelves round, put everything back on, and it's nice and level for a while.
Oh, okay. John?
Just going on slightly from what Bill said about Oh no, it was James going about a rod going then screwing next one on. If the bottom itself is an aluminium base,
Yep.
yeah, can be thinned out. Then you have 1 or 2 rods screwed into that, the full height. Then each section just slides onto it.
See, this was something I was considering this week, knowing, excuse me, knowing that we'd have this conversation. Initially, what I thought was, God, hang on.
Yes, take a drink. Obviously, doing way too much talking, and I'm not doing enough.
Oh, double's here. She got a brew.
Oh,
thank
perfect
you.
timing.
You're amazing. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Lovely.
Look at that.
Where's mine?
She obviously heard me dying. So yeah, I was thinking about it and thinking what I could do is a threaded bolt, a threaded piece of rod, if you like.
Yeah.
Thread that in and put in a bolt in the base, and that drops all the way through. Then have a nut where the next layer comes in.
Yeah.
But then I had this thought of, if I had something that it wasn't one piece, I could click together, maybe that would be easier.
Yeah. Joe says using metal as the meat in the sandwich would definitely help with maximum minimizing drooping. And he also says using metal in the deck sections, you could use block or I-beams of metal, either long or cross, that would reduce the flexibility. And the framework would just be decorated. But what you're saying, John, is have a metal base.
Well,
to screw everything in.
If you have a metal base, one, it's going to counterbalance everything else. So it's solid. It's not going to move. If you have where your control, I can't remember what you call it, where the captain and all that stood, you've got all that space behind. You can use that to have 3 or 4 metal rods threaded, and they're separate. Then you just screw them in, and they're that height. Then each section just slide at the back end. You have just dowel. You just slide it over. The next one slides over that one, and yeah, the magnets can hold it in place, and there's no swivel on it. And at the end, you just put it on, and it's all hidden. And if you want to, if you can get it right, you could drill into the bar. You can then put metal bars that screw into them to give you support as well while it's up. Because if you, in between shows, you just strip it down, and as Bill said earlier, you just brace it up with something so to stop any droopage.
Yeah. I think that's important, isn't it? When you're storing it. Are you going to make boxes for each one, or just buy some plastic boxes and unpack them nicely?
No, I think I'll be making some wooden boxes, carry case boxes. The amount of investment in the project warrants the investment in the ability to carry it around properly if I want to.
Yeah.
And also, if I'm honest, over there is the only place it can go. But there will come a time where it'll be in the way, so I'll want to put it away.
Yeah.
You could almost use one of the boxes, if you're going to custom made them, as the base. You take 4 sides of the top off. That's the heavy base. Screw in the rods. Then the other 2, you just open them up and slot them on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
could build it all up, make sure it's all straight and true, and then you can start painting it and putting all your figures in and everything else. But what about the electrics, though? How are you planning on plugging in the electrics? Because obviously, as things come off, they're going to have to be replugged in, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So the electrics, there's 2 lines of thoughts on it. Is that it's going to be minimum to start with, because the explosion itself, although in that picture that I showed, the AI picture, very fancy, looks amazing and all that sort of stuff, but that isn't a true element of what it's going to look like at all. So in the actual Akagi, where the build finishes, the model finishes, if you like, on one edge, which is just by the lift mechanism, The Akagi was hit by one bomb, which created devastation enough for it to have to be sunk. But that fell the opposite side of the lift mechanism. So that's actually off the model. And the whole point is that I'm going to be really stupid. Instead of having LEDs that do all the light work for me, I'm going to paint it. So there won't be any electrics with the explosion and fire and all that sort of stuff. Which sounds really simple, but it's not going to be. It's going to be a real nightmare. But I think it's worth the effort because it will take away that issue that we discussed in the first episode, which I said that the only lighting I've done in here in the studio looks fantastic. It's amazing. Take it to a show in a big environment, and it's almost like it's sitting there dribbling, looking for attention. It's just doesn't work. So that takes that element away. There may be some element of lighting, but that will be in the island section, which is already taken care of within the border models kit. It's a very small amount of electrics, and it's literally you take something off the top, press the switch, put it back on. So hopefully that won't really be an issue. I may put a little bit of lighting in the hangar decks because obviously the hangar decks would have had suspended lights. But I'm going to put some in the back somewhere, which I haven't quite figured out. I'm thinking maybe an LED strip where you can't actually see it, but it throws enough light out there to be able to illuminate what's going on below.
You could have something on the inside of the beams, couldn't you?
Yeah, it'll be in a way in which so when you're looking at the model, if you like, from the front here, so you can see in all of the hangar deck, you're looking at the back wall, which would be the compartment walls, which would be slightly lit. So I could run some LEDs within one of the beams of the structure that I've just shown you. Yeah. So it's facing that wall, so you'll never see it. But it will give me a little bit of illumination to highlight some of the stuff going on.
Yeah, it'll be quite dark, won't it?
It will be. I mean, there'll be a lot of light getting in, but it certainly will create atmosphere within the build. But I also want to use that as well. So one of the things we talked about in the first episode was I wanted each layer to tell a different story. And I wanted to reflect elements of the event, but also of my journey through heart surgery, etc. So surprise and pain and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so obviously on the flight deck, which we won't need any lighting for whatsoever because you'll be able to see it, there'll be lots of surprise and bits and pieces going on there. But on the first hangar deck, which is where in history the explosion and the fire was, hopefully the painting etc will provide as much light that I need, but I want it to be quite gloomy because it's quite a sad worrying element. So I don't mind that being a little bit gloomy because that will help. The lower level will probably be the bit that needs some illumination, I think, because that will be a little bit more of carrying on, not really knowing what's going on above, sort of thing, because they didn't know what was going on. They were just carrying on trying to arm the aircraft for the next flight and maintain stuff. So at the base there may be a need for some electrics, but again, because I've got that superstructure side of things, I can hide stuff in there. Hopefully,
you run some wires at the back of that, to a battery pack somewhere hidden in the base. I'm assuming. Bill, I know you put lights. In yours.
Yeah, and I like the idea of hiding lights that will give just illumination. But remember in one of those pictures that you did, James, there were those hanging lights.
Yep.
The practical lights. And I'm kind of a fan of trying to utilize the lighting that they had, because I think with LEDs these days, the different sizes and stuff, I mean, you can almost get just about the same illumination that you'd get from one of the lights that you would build to scale. And with the the concussion and everything, those little hanging lights being on wire, you can orient them and kind of like have them like that, which would cause that light to shine in a certain way.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't want to,
it was something in which we spitballed before,
Yeah.
and before we even did the roundtables, but also in the first
Yeah.
roundtables, was that one of the things I wanted to display within that first hangar level is that because there's no fire, there's no cotton wool, there's no smoke, there's none of that sort of stuff. It's all about what's off camera, if you like.
Yeah.
So one of the elements will be a figure near the edge, as close as the explosion can possibly be, being thrown off balance. And the whole story of the power of that explosion, because that's the moment, just as it explodes, that's got to be portrayed. So a person that's off balance being thrown backwards or whatever, the hanging lights would obviously be swinging away from the explosion, etc. And one of the things in which I'd considered was that I can make those lights and put them in doer's wire, and I can fold them all so they're all hanging in different ways, etc. But where I might use an LED, I could then create a focus of light within that element, which then potentially could tell another story, another element of that story as well. But it had to be I'd have to be very considered in how I approach that, because introducing light into something that you're doing light effects with in the paint is going to be incredibly tricky. But with that said, I think that's something I can add in a little bit later, because obviously we're at that point. I'm hoping at that point when I'm starting to look at the LED sides of stuff, the paintwork has got the base paintwork in the hangar section. It's got its base colors on, so it's got its base grays and whites. It's got its orange and its reds and all that sort of stuff, all creating the reflections of the explosion. Because I need to do that element first, so then I can then reflect that on the elements that I then put in. So the figures, so I've got two aircraft, and one of the aircraft is going to be on that layer. So that again, that's going to have object source lighting attacked to it as well, which scares the bejesus out of me. But
we know it can be done.
It can be done. It's a case of again, the way in which I've done it before, and this is how I'm going to approach it, is I will put the elements in and I will shine a UV light or torch at the angle that I want, and that take pictures, and that will give me the ability to understand where those light effects need to be. I can then paint those elements, etc., and then put that in, and then at that point is the point where maybe I'll add in an LED at the back somewhere, which is an off-white with a bit of orange painted over, like transparent orange over it, so it gives a little bit of a warm glow, but also light as well, which then I can highlight, I don't know, maybe a mechanic at the back with a really shocked face going,
I think you're going to, because it is so deep, I do think you're going to have a lot more of a lighting need, than maybe you're thinking. I'm not trying to second guess anything.
No, I think you're right. I do think you're right. I'm anticipating it. And I think whichever way you look at it, it's going to be cumbersome enough with the rods and all that sort of stuff, that having connectors for wiring it is not going to be an issue level by level. And having a battery at the bottom that controls all the power is not going to be an issue.
Right.
And I've literally got enough room within those compartments just to put a small battery that you would use on a motorbike.
Right. Yeah. Or a large one. Heck, I mean, looking at it, you could have a pretty good sized battery pack in those.
Yeah. So there isn't a case of I get halfway through a show and I need to change the battery, because I'm going to have a battery that will be able to run that for a day or more without concern or worry. That would be my.
I think it'll be quite obvious once you start putting two levels together how dark it will be underneath. You know, it might be worth taking it along to a sports center or something who will have that lighting and see how it looks on the table, because you're literally going to be blocking out light in that entire box, aren't you? So it might be worth doing that. John, have you used lights before in anything?
No, but I'm thinking of the explosion. The explosion is going to be intense. So if it's normal lighting all the way through, you suddenly have this intense light. The light at the other end is going to be dark. So you don't. If you're going to paint the light, it needs to be bright and quickly fades, because you need that blast wave.
Yeah.
Being exploded, yes. And what people need to look at then is the movement of everything, be it a bloke being blown forward or backwards or whatever, or tools being blown, because it's so enclosed, and you suddenly go from this bright white, intense, the light's coming, but it's that shock wave, to the far end, and it's dark. It's a contrast. You don't necessarily need the light. Yes, you can have little pinpricks, and they're just, ooh, what's that? Yeah, and they're there. But the light is your painting at that point where that blast appears in that section.
Yeah,
people can look and go, and if you put things in the dark place, then suddenly people go, oh, well, yeah, there's that as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's good having the shadows.
That's a really good point. You have to have that contrast.
You've got the contrast. Things really like you've got the aircraft. The aircraft, that blast wave, that aircraft's going to be like that. You can almost hit the ceiling with it. Then all of the underneath is, from the tip to the tail, is OSL'd, from really bright to dark, or a light, really light to fairly light. And it's a lot of it's not about the lighting, it's about that blast wave. They don't know what's happened unless they've read something. They go, oh, what's happening? Oh, something's happened and it's gone that way.
But see, the funny part about that, I hadn't thought about the movement of the aircraft per se. I thought about tools and people and all that sort of stuff. But you're right, potentially I could have the aircraft all but on its side, but that in itself would create a bigger shadow because it's an object hiding the lights, the light source.
Yeah, I mean, how's it parked? Is it parked along the aircraft? Is it parked at an angle? I mean, is it gone like that? Is it gone like that? Is it facing the opposite direction? And its tail up, nose in, prop into the deck.
Yeah.
Can you have you got a bomb trolley? Is the bomb's gone? And all that lighting is underneath, and it's in layers. Because then, if you've got that aircraft going up, behind it, as you say, it's darker, but you can have light going around it. So that against that wall, and that side is going to be, lighter than directly behind it.
See, another thing in which I thought of, which I hadn't told Bill about this, was on the far end of that particular hangar deck. I can place a doorway in that wall to a compartment or whatever. Now, what we did talk about previously was we were talking about on the flight deck. There's not going to be a lot of stuff going on the flight deck because they're busy fighting the aircraft coming in. But what I wanted to do is to not leave the flight deck empty. So I was going to put only two figures on the flight deck. One was on the flight deck trying to run for cover and being blasted off his feet, per se. And the other figure was going to be in a doorway, which obviously the procedure would be, we've been here, shut the doorways, make us watertight, etc., etc. So he'd be in the doorway, holding the door for his mate, potentially, or trying to shut it or whatever, or struggling with the force of the explosion. Now, I could use that same method in the hangar deck where there's a doorway which obviously behind that wall would be lighting. So that could then create a little bit of lighting plus a shadow because of the door, maybe. So that's another, because John's right. In my head, he's understood me, strangely enough, 100%. In what's in my head that I've not conveyed is that there will be that darkness in that one side of the that element on that layer. The layer underneath is where the lighting plays more, because that won't have the reflection of the blast. That's all about how it is at that moment while they're doing their work.
I think that's a really good idea, having the brightest part being the explosion, and then making sure that you do have lots of shadow. And it's okay to have dark, because without the dark you don't have the light.
The thing with the darkness as well, you can hide bits that hold up bits.
Yeah.
So if you're working away, you've got spanners and stuff and tools. They want to be going, especially as close. You want things coming past people, so they need to be hidden somehow. That it's dark, you can hide it from directly behind, and they're in midair.
Yeah. Wires and things. Joe says, remember on aircraft carriers, some aircraft were hung from the deck above, maximizing space. I don't know if they did that in WW2 or not.
Yep. Yeah, they certainly did. The Akagi would have had spares and stuff within the roof section. All of their aircraft were in use on that particular day. They were either because remember, at this particular moment in history, they've done their first wave. They've attacked midway, and they've recovered all of the aircraft for them to get their next load of weaponry put on. And there's a hesitation as to whether to go from bombs to torpedoes, because obviously they weren't aware that the American strike force was that close, etc. So all of the bombers are being rearmed, and there's torpedoes and bombs and everything all over the place, because they're in a panic to try and catch up with themselves. In this particular storyline, I'm going to be using a Zero and a Kate, which is the bomber. The Zero will be in the hangar deck being repaired because it's sustained severe damage. All the Zeros were up, either flying and attacking the inbound planes, or they'd been lost. So it was only the bombers that were in the flight decks, and anything that was being repaired or non-flight worthy. So
carnage in there, wouldn't it? With so much stuff flying around, like you're saying, papers and all sorts of things. We're coming up to the hour, so I just want to make sure that we're on the final leg. So there's a couple of things we should talk about before we land, using that analogy for no reason. With your experience that you've built things before, John, is there anything that you would make sure that James doesn't do wrong in the first place? So is there any lessons that you could impart on him in terms of building something structurally?
Yeah, don't use resin.
Funny. Bill? Honestly. But is there anything that you would have want him to look out for, like use of materials, or is there something that you would, have you had something go wrong in your past building? Because I know that you've used resin and you've been all right with it, but
you can't see it. It's up there.
It's way up
not the door. It's next to it. That's by the way. Polystyrene. Don't use it.
Right. Why is that?
Because it sucks up resin.
Oh, does it? Oh, that's interesting. Right, so you keep on pouring and pouring.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's got nothing to do with this.
You're not going to have water, are you, James? You're not. It's not going to be in. No. Okay.
No. I did consider doing the vertical beams. Originally, I thought about doing the vertical beams and walls of the hanger decks in resin. There's a build by a Frenchman that I've discovered. Very, very good build. He's got a build series. And the way he's done his, he only does the first hanger deck. He doesn't do any more than that. But what he's done is he's done an MDF board at the base and an MDF board upright. And then onto that, he's then glued resin walls and vertical structural beams within those walls. Right. And I quite like that idea. But my experience with resin and 3D printing, I've had a few things that I've done bases, for example, for little 1/16 heads, which look absolutely amazing. But as soon as you put them in a bit of sunlight, they suddenly discover they're not quite as cured as you thought they were, and they start deforming and all sorts. So I purposely didn't want to use resin. I am a little bit old school in that if I would build a building, then I would build the building with beams that would be wooden, because that's the material that would be potentially in that building anyway, and it's an easy format to follow. So in this case, obviously I didn't want to buy steel I-beams in this scale.
Aluminium ones now.
Yeah, because I didn't think about it, and B, I don't even know where you get them. But anyway, so I obviously went with the plastic I-beam, which are quite solid, and thick plastic card was going to be my base. And when I say that, I literally do mean that. I have got very thick sheets of plastic that will be the base, and then on top of that, I will then stick the plating for the hull on. So it becomes thicker, but it also it means I'm not fiddling around with I mean, this, for example, is a wall that I've built or started to build. And obviously you can see it's really flexy. But once you start putting the beams and stuff in, that flexi will go completely. But as on the whole side of things, and if I put plating on one side of it as well, then that will make it a lot more rigid as well. So I wouldn't use resin in this sort of scenario. I mean, obviously I'll use resin figures and potentially other bits and pieces.
Bill, what about you? Is there any structural mistakes that you've done before that you would like to impart onto your friend James, that he doesn't do the same thing?
Probably too many to mention in the time we have left.
We've got a few minutes.
Mistakes I've made. No, I think you have a really, really good handle on it, frankly. I think that, speaking to different people, but also your own ideas, I think you're on a really, really good, track to make it go right. Malcom mentioned something earlier about pipes. And in lieu of trying to find aluminum I-beam, and I would stay away from brass. Brass is actually relatively heavy.
Yeah.
But you can find aluminum tubing.
Yeah.
And to integrate some aluminum tubing as your structural element in your deal might be easier than to try to find the I-beams to do that, because you could just doll those up and make them look like they're wastewater or fuel or whatever, but they're actually a structural element, like John was saying, cantilevered off of your superstructure. And I think that would really help. The second idea that I think that really stood out is somebody mentioned doing a laminate, but if you do more of a torsion box design where you have a space between the two laminate pieces, that'll give you a rigidity without having to go to the aluminum, but you're adding a fair amount of bulk, and you would still have to use very lightweight materials. The wood might be a little bit heavy for that application. But that's another idea, to build an actual structure where you have that gap, where you have a torsion box design that could handle that cantilever quite well. And then it would give you a place for routing anything that you wanted to hide, in it, and still have your beam structure below it. And it wouldn't have to be all that thick to do it. So anyway, those are just the couple ideas that came out. But I think Malcolm's idea, combined with John's, but using maybe aluminum tubing, a lot easier to find, number one.
Yeah.
And integrating it in like that might be a viable way to go forward.
They would have had some sort of air ventilation
sure.
through there as well. You could probably get
Yeah.
some square metal
Yeah.
cubes,
Ducting or whatever.
Yeah.
And then utilize that as your that cantilevered element.
Have you had
would
anything
really
fall apart
help.
before, Bill?
Pardon?
You had anything fall apart on you as you've been building it?
No, but I have dropped things. And remarkably, because number one, I didn't use resins and stuff like that. And like James said in the past, I try to use natural materials where that natural material would exist, but do it in scale. There's something about that, because those things do flex. When these are moving, when I'm transporting stuff, the biggest kind of stresses and things like that happen in the transport and the vibration and the movement in the box or in the thing that I'm carrying it with. It's typically not at the show. Sometimes, I get finger damage, but mostly damage comes from unpacking it, packing it, and things like that. So I think trying to, mitigate that as much as possible helps, because I haven't had anything fall apart, but those are the biggest damages that I've seen, is taking it apart, putting it together, and transport.
What about you, John?
No, not really. I haven't done anything that big.
I know you got rained on once, didn't you?
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
When was that?
The resin water that you had as you brought it into the show. It was raining, and you were concerned about the resin reacting with the water. Do you remember that?
Many years ago, many months, years, days. I'm old and decrepit. It's by the by. It's all sorted.
Yes, absolutely. It was fine, but
yes,
something that could certainly affect it would be water, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And don't
You'll
drop
be
it.
careful how you transport it. I can't think of anything. I just throw mine, not literally. I just put them in tubs and throw them in the back of the car, and there's just a model that you can glue it back together.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can. And usually when you get back home after being out somewhere with it, you have to glue it back together again. There's no point gluing it when you get there.
I mean, that thing there.
Yeah.
That was a nightmare. That's in a big, I think you can just see it, big case.
Yes.
One, to stop it getting dusty, and two, it's bloody heavy with it as well. Just doesn't go anywhere. It's ended up gluing it down. It just moved everywhere. It's just being sensible how you pack it to bring it.
Yeah.
And expect to fix it when you get there.
Yeah. Well, I think James has given you a lot of ideas to go on. Being able to keep it structurally sound and modular, having the ability to get inside it and to start arranging your figures and putting your lights in while trying to keep it so it doesn't fall apart. And you've got some good ideas there. Do you want to wrap it up now, James, or is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I think we've covered the format really, really well. I'm just gonna. I will talk about what's coming up, etc. But anyone that's still watching, hey, thanks for being with us. But if you've got any questions for any of us, by all means, throw it in the chat now, and we can reflect on that. But what I can tell you is, obviously, the roundtable is a program now as such. There was 10 in all. This is the second one, so the third one will be on the 3rd of August, which will be called Plating the Bulkhead. Now that will all be about the detailing of the build. So looking at the detail of the hangar decks, maybe the detail of the kit that we're going to use, the base kit, so the border models, Akagi bridge section, etc. Where we're at with that. I'm hoping that I will be at a point where I can physically show some bits and pieces of the island, where we can discuss what additional things we can add in, etc. Obviously, John's said there about bomb racks and bomb carts and tools and all that sort of stuff. So they're the sort of things which we'll talk about in the next one. The guest for that should be, I hope, the lovely Chris Meddins is going to come and join us. And probably Bill and Martin, I believe, are up for that as well. Martin couldn't be here today because he was busy doing some family stuff, so that's good. And that's part of it. Throughout all these episodes, we'll have different people with different ideas and things, and expertise, if you like. I have asked a lot of people. I've had a lot of people say yes and a lot of people say no. So thank you to everybody that's watched this. I know those that said no said they can't be here because of time restraints and all that sort of stuff. Joe is one of them. But I know that they're going to be inputting stuff through sending messages and being involved in the chat. So thank you still for supporting what we're doing. There isn't anything coming up in the chat at the moment. So I think we can just throw it back to you guys to throw your last bits out before we leave them.
Yeah.
Malcolm, how about yourself? Because obviously you've been hosting and listening to this and thinking what a fool I am. Any thoughts that you've got?
I don't think that you're a fool. I know you're a fool. It's the basic thing. There's absolutely no way that I would ever attempt something as insane as this. However, in typical James style, you've let everybody know about what you're going to do, and you've involved everyone in your hobby. And that's the fun of the hobby is building stuff with people and chatting about it and talking about it. And we can talk about the hobby as much as we can build the hobby, even more so sometimes. And I guess a show like this proves it. So while I think I think you need help in several ways, I also think it's wonderful and it's brilliant and well done. Yeah. But I haven't seen it yet. When I see it, I'll probably say that.
Yeah, once I put my money where the mouth is.
Once it's done. Oh, that's another thing. Actually, we're going to talk about money and how much this is going to cost you, in terms of we start talking about aluminium beams and metal struts and magnetizing and all different LEDs and all the figures and things like that. It's going to be a lot of money, and I guess there are ways that you could scrimp and save on different things, but do you want to scrimp and save on things on something as big as and important as this thing?
Well, this is it. I mean, yes, I don't think, in typical James fashion, obviously when I picked the kit that I was going to use, I didn't know how big it was to start with, and then my idea or how that was going to be understood in size either. I didn't understand how big it was going to be either in concept. So obviously with cost, I never even thought about factoring that in. But just for an idea, I was showing the guys earlier, I've had a delivery this week of a mere 44 figures, which will be used within the build. Well, not all of them in actually, because some of those are not suitable. But I think it might be you, Bill, asked me last time how many figures I thought I might need for this build, and I had never thought about it. So the wonderful thing about ChatGPT is you can ask it all sorts of things, and I think ChatGPT's got the figure wrong, but somewhere close to 100 figures potentially. Well, you can do the maths yourself. I'm not going to say anything more than that.
I can paint one or two if you want me to.
Oh, well, funny you should say that.
There's a box on its way to your home now.
We're going to be talking about the figures at some point, and I will give a teaser. I haven't had the conversation yet, but I plan to have a conversation with someone about figures, where the whole part of me doing this, the whole reason of doing this was because I wanted to give back something.
Mm-hmm.
B, I wanted to involve the people that had supported me through the last year as I recover from open heart surgery, and still going through stuff anyway. And to share that experience so that if anyone did happen to have a similar experience coming their way, they would know roughly what to look out for and what to not do and to potentially do.
Mm-hmm.
With that all said, I did think to myself, well, maybe some of those people, or as I like to call them, suckers, that help me out, they may end up getting something sent to them and being given instruction what to do with it and sending it back to have it put on the build.
They might send you instructions of what you can do with it.
I know that they will respond in a similar kind. Well, I know we but so the figures was something we talked about, or I spitballed with some people, and there may be a potential opportunity for some people to get involved with painting figures or elements of the build, which can then sit in the build, because then it then does become a community build. Money wise, yes, I'm not even going to talk about it. I don't want to even think about it either. But the joy of taking on such a big project is that there is no time constraint. It isn't going to be a done next week project. I'm hoping it'll be done by Telford next year, which means it's a year and a bit worth of a project. So over a year, expense won't be so bad. But with that said, I do have to say a massive thank you to a supplier of figures, and that being this is my memory problem, sorry. Triumphant Models agreed this morning to sponsor some of the build with some help. So a massive thank you to Elin over in China, who's going to help. So stuff like that, and obviously with the guys from Craft Lighting that have also helped to figure a way in which may be able to help with that element too.
That's great.
Is very welcome, but I'm very grateful for. So, and luckily with both of those elements, that will be something in which I can then obviously pass on to the community as well in some form, so that everyone benefits too. So another layer to the onion revealed.
Brilliant. John, you got anything else to wrap up with?
I hadn't to start with, but then I went, maybe James should have done this sort of thing before he actually started. Because he might get to a point where he goes, if I had just done this slightly different, I could implement this, which is a better solution.
What, not done it or change the scale?
He knew the model. He knew the model.
Hang on. That's a little unfair, because what was it, 3 months ago? I said to you guys, you and both of you two actually, I didn't realise how big this was be. Maybe I should go down to 1/72nd. And both of you said, no, you stick to 1/35th, James. Both said that.
Yeah, I thought you
and
should
the problem is, it's not our build. Yeah, but you knew it was going to be big.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I prefer to play with bigger things.
It's the structural support is one of the first things you need, because it's just going to get bleh.
But this is why I've not actually gone down the road of building anything per se, and I literally have 3 bases, and I've done some beam work purely so I can then look at it and go, right, okay, how does this work? How can I put it together these are the base elements I need to create or understand how the structure will work and how I've got to support it. So that's why I've done nothing more, and that's why there is no build videos of any of the kits that I'm using. I literally started today on this, which is part of the Bofors gun of the kit that I wasn't going to include in the build, but I found a way of being able to include it in the build today. So I've literally started building that 4 hours ago, and I've not even done a gun yet. But yeah, so I'm purposely going slow because I want to get at least halfway through these roundtables before I really get into some of the elements in anger, which by that I mean the carrier deck and all that sort of stuff, because that superstructure is going to be super important to everything else. The planes and the figures and all the rest are elements that will come at some point, although I have started to fiddle with a figure today to try and understand how I can manipulate them, because they're really difficult to get hold of, Japanese figures, and the ones I've got, they're all in resin, so I've got to figure a way in which I can manipulate them without having to sculpt them from base, which would be lovely to learn, but I don't want to do 100 different figures.
Not now.
Thank you very much.
Maybe the next build you could do maybe something like that. Maybe
the next
if you're
builder,
still in the hobby, that of course you might take up golf after this.
The next builder can take on that challenge.
Yeah. What about you, Bill? You got any final thoughts or considerations?
I would just say, the biggest thing for me on a longer build is keeping the vision strong, taking breaks. Don't you sometimes you feel, I think, that you gotta, I'm not going to do that, I gotta keep on task, and I think the breaks really help. Take a weekend off sometimes and don't do the build. And I build every day, and I know, James, you do a lot of that as well, but sometimes taking those breaks can give you those ideas that you're so deep into it that you just can't clear your mind, and by taking a break and stepping back and not feeling guilty about it, you get refreshed, you come back with a great idea, and then you can kind of get back into it with some fervor. I think that you have to think about how you build. I think you have to think about the different aspects of the build, and just keep positive about it. Longer builds are a unique thing. Some people build something for months, but it's just one thing because they're just doing little bits and stuff like that. But when you're building a very large diorama over many months and you're active all the time, there's so many things going on that if you don't take those breaks, I don't think you get a real clear view of everything. You get too immersed into it and you can't see it for what it is. So take breaks, and I think you're doing great. I think it's coming along really nice, and I'm really happy to be able to give a little bit of, I guess, my experience.
There you go. That's one of the things we're going to talk about in another roundtable, isn't it? The mental health side of model making.
Yeah. There's a big part of that.
Those huge hurdles that you have to get over, to get through these big builds, which we're going to be watching you from afar, scaling those heights with no support from us whatsoever. Of course.
No. Yeah, right. Yeah, no, we're gonna cover that because that's important as well. The for me, model making has always been, without a lot of the time, without me even realise, a way of me dealing with issues that I have and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so it would be rude of me not to include that in this process, at least to acknowledge it's there. But we're gonna. Like every roundtable, we're going to have on that particular one, which is in October time, I think it is. We're going to have some experts, some proper experts to do with that. They've been invited, and one has accepted, and the other one I'm still waiting on. But we're going to cover that. That'll be quite a deep deep session. So yeah, for those that would be interested. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for helping me in this crazy endeavor. A massive thank you to everyone that's watched this live, and also will be watching it without it being live. I did take a break, alluding to what Bill said. Literally, this particular one was meant to be a couple of weeks ago, but we ducked out. I ducked out because I wasn't here, able to do it. So, and I'm not afraid of that. That's not a problem. I have a schedule. It's there in front of me, but it's a schedule in which can be flexible. So it's not a big deal. Anyway, like I say, a massive thank you. Until our next roundtable, Malcolm, thank you for hosting and keeping me stum. Difficult job at the best of times.
Easy.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for everybody watching, and we will see you on the next one.